Welcome to the Sexy Confidence podcast. Sexy confidence is an attitude, it's a high performance state of mind that enables leaders to master ourselves so we can stay calm during stressful challenges and situations. And I'm so happy you're here. I'm your host, Sandra Gonzalez. I'm a retired Marine officer turned executive coach speaker who served 20 years of service as a U.S. Marine. Now I guide and train high caliber leaders, business executives, C suite, veteran entrepreneurs so they can take command of any room they step into and magnetize opportunities for impact and growth. And having said that, I'm so excited because our guest today is the incredible Dr. Michael Mantell. Now, Dr. Mantell is one of the most sought after behavior science experts in the world. For more than 45 years, he has been helping people disturb themselves less, find lasting change, contentment, and a more awakened life as they move past crippling emotions. He's been a popular guest on television, radio, talk shows across America, including Oprah, Larry King, and Good Morning America, just to name a few. He's authored 4 books and is known for getting to the root of issues quickly, offering original solutions and powerful results. Dr. Mantell, welcome. I am so happy you're here. An absolute honor to have you. What did I miss?
Oh my goodness. You exude what you call sexy confidence. Your self-assurance, your comfort in yourself, your body, your appealing demeanor, all of those things are just come from you. What did you miss? I don't know. I'd be afraid to say you missed anything. No, I'm kidding. I think that you just bring it. And this is the connection we had when you were a guest on my podcast, 360-Degree Health, that I do with Dr. James and Michelle Cooley. And we just hit it off. We connected.
We totally connected, Dr. Mantell. And it was an absolute honor being on your show, being on live radio here in San Diego, California. It was so much fun. But I learned that you get to the root of the issues. And to me that's what stood out. And that's why I was like, oh my goodness, I would be so honored to have you on my podcast, and that's what brings us together. But
Yeah.
I would love to get started with some questions.
Let's go.
If you're ready, Dr. Mantell.
Absolutely.
So, and thank you so much for that beautiful compliment. It's one of the things, that I realized as a Marine, that the most important thing we can do as leaders is learn to master ourselves, regulate our emotions, think about what we're going to say before we actually say it. Because as leaders, it's important to set that example.
Yeah.
And so some of the leaders that I have coached, or the leaders that have come to me, they want to build a visible persona and they want to own it, Dr. Mantell. See, they want to be seen as this profession. And I can totally relate because I realized I want to be seen as a professional too. But the most important thing about this experience is, self-acceptance for me. So, and amongst many other things, but my first question for you is, what are some psychological reasons leaders experience anxiety, nervousness? I've had some leaders tell me, Sandra, I've had thought blocks.
Right.
around public speaking?
So I coach executives. I coach celebrities in the entertainment field. I've been a member of SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, since 1981. So I have a large group of celebrities that I coach. I spend a lot of time working with physicians, young physicians who are coming into it with all kinds of anxieties, and older physicians who are beginning to think about retirement. Um, and one of the things that I see when it comes to anxiety about public speaking, or let's expand this, anxiety about most things. I'm going to break down, I like to break things down, like you said. I'm going to break it down into 4 beliefs. Number 1, I should be or must be. They should see me this way. They have to view me this way. That's number 1, this rigid thinking. Number 2, this notion of magnifying how bad it is if it's not the way I rigidly, absolutistically demand it must be. It's not just bad if you don't think I'm doing a good job. It's horrible. It's terrible. It's a catastrophe. No, it's just bad. It's unfortunate. Number 3, we blow up our unbearability. I can't take this. I can't tolerate it. Oh, I can't stand it. If the audience isn't clapping, if I'm getting 100%, I can't tolerate that. Of course you can. You just don't like it. And then the 4th thought is, if it's not the way I think it must be, and it's catastrophe, and I can't bear it, I am a piece of you know what, no good. So this self-depreciation. Now, there are many, many reasons why people have anxiety about public speaking in particular. First, of course, is this fear of judgment. Like I just said, they're going to judge me poorly. And as my mother used to tell me, and I just shared this with my grandson half an hour ago, he's 14. As my mother used to say to me, what do you care what they think? What do you care what they think? What do you think? Brilliant psychologist. She wasn't really, but she was a brilliant lady. Perfectionism. I can't make a mistake. Oh my goodness. I was talking to a physician who's studying for her boards, and she says, every time I see a question, it reminds me of everything I don't know. And what if I make a mistake? Perfectionism.
Mhm.
What about the imposter syndrome?
Mm.
They're going to find out, I don't know what I'm talking about. Now, we all have this. I'm not as competent as they think I am. What if I lose control? Public speaking situations can feel less controllable because I really am not controlling what you're thinking. There's something called the spotlight effect.
Yes.
We overestimate how much attention we think we're getting. Really paying that much attention to, is this the right colored jacket? Oh my goodness, they're not paying attention to that. And what about past negative experiences? Remember the time I stood in front of the American Psychological Association and I started giving a talk, and it was the wrong talk for that time slot. Oh well, okay. So I really believe that when it comes to public speaking anxiety, we're not living in the present. We're predicting the future. Anxiety is a future disorder. Now, having said all this, I would apologize for speaking so long. Oh no! What if Sandra thinks I'm talking too long? What if she's sorry I could do the whole number? But we don't do that.
No.
We have to please ourselves and know that we're bringing our heart.
Mm.
We're bringing our soul. We're bringing what we think is best. And if we're guided by those proper values, we're going to connect.
So is that the key, Dr. Mantell, to be present in the moment?
Don't keep your mind, what if that happens? What if that happens? You know, Can I tell you, I don't know how we're doing with time, but I'll tell you a great anecdote that I share in
Yes,
my
please.
talk. Plane was flying 35,000 feet over the air, flying coast to coast, and all of a sudden, uh, pilot comes on, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry to tell you, we're having some serious engine trouble. I want everyone to put your seatbelts on, and let's just pray that everything goes well. Immediately, people started screaming. But there was a guy in the front row 3A or B, and he was reading his magazine, having his cup of coffee. He didn't get himself all upset. And plane drops 5,000 feet. And people are going, oh my God, we're going to die. We're going to die. Okay?
Mhm.
Now, he's drinking his coffee, reading a plane goes down another 10,000 feet. And he's reading his magazine, having his cup of coffee, and people are having heart attacks and screaming and carrying on. The plane goes down to 5,000 feet above the ground, and he's reading. And all of a sudden, the pilot comes on and says, ladies and gentlemen, thank goodness we're safe. We're going to ascend. Everything's going to be okay. Flight attendants, please make sure everyone's okay. They open the curtain. Everyone's dead, except for the guy in 7A. He's reading his magazine and having his coffee. The stewardess comes, sir, what happened? He said, I don't know. I kept telling myself, right now, I'm okay.
Ah,
Right now, I'm okay. Right now, I'm okay. They kept thinking, I'm going to die. I'm going to fail. I'm going to have a poor presentation. They're not going to like me. Anxiety is a disorder of putting yourself into Tomorrowland. Let's live today.
yes, yes. And it's something so magical and powerful that I have really experienced lately, Dr. Mantell. And I I'm in a state of flow. I'm in a state of flow and I'm so blessed and I wake up excited for life and I'm like I think something happened to me. I actually shared this with my siblings the other day and I said something happened to me. And they're like,
Hmm.
well, what do you mean? I said, I don't know. I'm happy. I'm like really, really happy. And I wake up excited for life. And, I've learned to prime my brain in the right direction by
Mhm.
cultivating an attitude of gratitude.
Mhm.
And I say this because I've raised my consciousness where I do experience more of this present moment.
Yeah.
So for our viewers, our leaders, everybody that's watching Dr. Mantell, what are some things that they can do to be more present?
Great question, of course. Great question. Um, I think I ask myself, where are my feet right now? Where are my feet right now at this very moment in time? Not 5 minutes from now. Where do I have to go? But right now, am I okay? At this moment in time, I'm fine. When I drive down the roads in our beautiful neighborhood, and we live not far from each other, I
Mhm.
look at the palm trees and I look at the waving leaves, and I look at that presently and I go, oh, it's so beautiful. I don't think about the traffic that I'm going to run into. It's so beautiful right now, number one. Number two, I also focus on what can go right. What
Ooh,
can go right?
yes.
Very important. There's a wonderful article in the New York Times. I think it broke today. Look it up, about having a positive frame of mind,
Yes.
predicting good. I'll give you an example. What's going on in New York City right now is far from good. There's so much crime and homelessness and just difficulty. I saw something the other day on Facebook. It showed this video of the most beautiful views of New York City, just magnificent,
Mm.
just gorgeous, beautiful buildings and the Central Park and magnificent, beautiful views. And Louis Armstrong was singing behind. I'm not a singer. I see trees of green, red roses too, and people. And I thought to myself, exactly, what do I want to look at? I want to
Yes.
look at what's good. I want to look at what's right. It's called a positivity bias.
Mm.
Yeah, we can think that the world is made up of bad, but there's a lot of good.
Oh,
I choose to stay positive, present where I am right now. Those are a couple of things that I do.
I love that. Love that. Well, what are some of your tips, Dr. Mantell, that one of the things that how it has personally and professionally helped me is this ability to incorporate a morning ritual. And this ritual, it's I wake up early. I wake up at 4 o'clock every morning, but I wake up excited and it's what I tell myself. I mean, every morning I don't wake up excited. There's some days where I'm like, okay, Sandra, you're a little sore from yesterday, or I'm not as chipper as, the other day. But I'm cognizant of where my thoughts are going. So I make my bed and I cultivate this
Right.
attitude of gratitude. What do you do, Dr. Mantell? What are some things people can do to cultivate more gratitude?
So it's intentional. It doesn't just happen. Neuroplasticity is an expression of how the brain takes billions of synapses, knots, like threads, and ties them up in knots. Okay. And if we don't consciously untie those knots, we become just habituated into thinking the same thing over and over again. And it's as if we're blaming our past. But our past does not define us. We have the power. So it's important to recognize, to really understand, you have the power to choose what you feel.
Mhm.
Now, quick lesson, every emotion we have comes from the way we think. You don't have fear, happiness, joy, sorrow, grief, anxiety, worry, concern. You don't have any emotion without thinking first. So I am very intentional about that. When I wake up in the morning, I pray. I look forward to a good day. And I tell myself, no matter what happens, it's for my benefit. Now,
Mm.
some people say, oh, Dr. Mantell, you live in a bubble. I do. Come on in. It's great. There's room. Come on in. Yeah,
Yes.
I get bad things happen, of course.
Mm.
But I look at those as opportunities to grow. And this is not just like happy talk. I'm being sincere. This is exactly the way I think. And then there's a great song by, I'm not giving her a plug, but I'll give it, Amy Scruggs, Scruggs. She's a San Diego County woman.
Ooh.
Magnificent song called What If It All Goes Right? Oh, and I try to listen to it if I can. I listen to it at the gym every day, but I try to listen to it in the morning. I also agree with you. We need morning rituals. So I go on, this is my thing. I go on Facebook every day, 6 days a week anyway, and I put up Mantell's points to ponder, 5 key points to set the world's mind in the right direction. And it helps me. Number two, I then wish happy birthday to all my friends whose birthday is that day. I just feel great about doing that. And then I send a note out to the family, and then I have my coffee and all the rest. My wife and I chat. I always make our bed, and she always sends me a little text, thanks for making my side of the bed. It's true.
Mm.
And so these morning rituals are very important. Most of it starts with, how do I choose to think today? The link is what you think.
Yes. And that's one of your books, correct,
Yeah,
Dr.
that's my
Mantell?
most recent book.
The link is what you think. So is that what you mean specifically?
Say it again, please.
Is that what you mean specifically
Yes.
about the link?
Right. So an event happens, and I'm over here, and I think about that event. What I think about the event determines what I feel. The link between my feelings and that event is what I think. The event, like someone said to me, oh, getting up and speaking scares me. No, it doesn't. It's not, it doesn't do anything to you.
Yes.
You tell yourself a story. What story are you going to tell yourself? Look, another quick thing about it is like this. There are varsity thinkers and junior varsity thinkers. The junior varsity thinkers like this. So Sandra, is this going to be okay? It's going to be okay. I did okay. Yeah, you're going to be fine. Oh, thank goodness. Then I feel good. The varsity thinker says, I don't know if I'm going to do well or not. But even if I don't do well, I am still okay. Now, what does that mean? I am okay. Well, this opens up another door. That is, what I am was determined the day I was born.
Mm.
What I do, that's different. I can do all kinds of bad things. I can
Yes.
do good things, but that doesn't determine what I am.
Oh,
I am okay.
yes. Yes.
What I do is not okay. So
That's
I try not to rate myself. I rate my performances, my abilities, my skills, my grades. I never did well in math. Does that mean I'm a failure as a human being? As my old professor Albert Ellis used to say, you're not a worm for acting wormily. You're just a person who acts like a worm.
yes.
Not a good idea.
And hearing you share that thought, or that I'm going to be okay, like the way this varsity,
Right.
thinker thinks, um, is one of the things that I personally and professionally experienced, as far as I'm going to be okay when I take command of the stage, because God gave me this opportunity to speak and share my wisdom and share whatever it is that I have to share with
Excuse me.
these people at this moment. So
Mhm.
I say that because it comes from like this abundance mindset, right, Dr.
Yes,
Mantell?
absolutely.
We're already whole, and it's looking at ourselves through this, I'm a whole person. I'm already complete. I'm not an imposter. I'm
Right.
doing the best I can with what I have. And whatever happens, happens.
I will be okay. And you bring that. It's so clear the messaging that you have on your beautiful website, which I love. It's magnificent, really filled with all kinds of things, body, brain, and the confidence and all these things that you bring. You understand you don't have to be her. In fact, if you were supposed to be her, you'd be her. It
Yeah.
reminds me of the old story in New York City. The cabs would come and someone would call a cab and you open the door. And before you get in, someone else comes in, gets in the cab really fast, and the cab takes off. Hey, that's my cab. If it was your cab, you'd be in it. You're supposed to be who you are. We
Exactly.
need to celebrate ourselves.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful for my military experience, Dr. Mantell, because it
Mm.
was this beautiful experience that taught me, and of course, I had parents who inculcated values, principles in me. And, they're the ones that guided me forward in saying, even though you're part of this gun club, let me be, my father, may he rest in peace. I lost him 3 years ago. And
Mm.
he's the reason why I came up with sexy confidence, because I had a father who was assertive. He
Mhm.
allowed moral principles and values to guide him. But it was my father who said, you are a woman first and
Mhm.
foremost. Never forget that.
Mhm.
And so that thought, it's like he embedded the seed, and it allowed me to step into my authentic version by understanding, okay, I'm surrounded in this male dominated organization by the toughest men that our country has to offer. So then how can I, not demand respect, because as you already know, Dr. Mantell, respect is a gift people give you as a result of, you establishing trust and rapport. But I realized I have to be unapologetically and authentically myself. So, I learned that I'm feminine, I'm very masculine, and it was combining those two, the masculinity and the femininity, that I achieved to, and I realized, oh, everybody must combine the masculinity, being assertive, being
Hmm.
direct with your communication,
Hmm.
getting your point across, or being feminine, being receptive, being humble, being open to suggestions. So leaders must be able to combine both energies, and in doing so, step into their sexy confidence. But as you hear me say this, Dr. Mantell, what comes up for you as it relates to the masculinity and the femininity, and how can a
Well,
leader be more authentic?
I think you said it earlier. Self-acceptance is number one. The ability to accept yourself. Does that mean you have to like everything you do? No. But you accept, I want to emphasize the word self. You accept this thing we call self. See, self-esteem is the cancer of psychology. Because if you believe, I'm okay if I have that, if I achieve that, if I have those letters after my name, if I, that's self esteem and that's conditional. So I emphasize with the clients I have growing unconditional self acceptance. Yes, I don't accept the fact that I don't do that well. I want to work harder to do that. Or you know what? I don't care if I do that well. It's not important to me. I'm not a sports person. I used to be a long time ago, but I'm not anymore. And people say, "Come on, let's just we'll play pickleball. You're old now." I love that. No, I'm not interested in that. What do you mean? Come on, that's a cool guy thing to do. It may be, but this guy doesn't like, I'm not in sports. Accepting yourself as you are, number one. I
Mhm.
think that that is critical. Number two, we all have traits that we call masculine, feminine. We give names to like kindness is feminine. No, kindness can be masculine.
Yes.
Kindness is a reflection of your soul, and your
Mhm.
soul isn't masculine or feminine. And so I think getting outside of some of these labels is important. Um, and again, the way we talk to ourselves about ourselves is very important because it gives us a glimpse into whether we're having conditional acceptance, only if I have that or drive that or wear that or whatever, earn that. I'd like to, but I accept me just
Mhm.
as he accepts me.
And what would you say, Dr. Mantell, now that we're on this topic of acceptance? I know for me, one something that was very powerful is this ability to give myself a healthy dose of self compassion
Hmm.
when I needed it. So instead of being this bully like I used to be, because I deal with perfectionism, I mean, we all deal with these things, but it was looking at myself and finally saying, you know what, Sandra, you did the best you could with what you have, and giving myself that dose of self compassion has really healed and helped me move forward in a positive light and
Hmm.
unconditionally accept myself as
Hmm.
I experience this thing called life. So what would you say, Dr. Mantell, are some ways that people can accept themselves more, in addition to the self-talk and some of the things that we've already spoken about?
Right. Well, I think that it comes back to how you define yourself. What when you get to the point where you say, "I'm okay," even though I didn't do this, you are redefining, and I think coming closer to a more accurate description of what self is and what you were born to be, your purpose. in life? What is your purpose? What it brings meaning to you may be different than what brings meaning to him or her or them. So I think part of self-compassion is it is anchored in the way you think about yourself. It's anchored in the way you understand the purpose that you're here to bring to the world. And it means that, no, I'm not a football player. Well, okay, so who says I'm supposed to be a football player?
Mhm.
I can appreciate this because what I bring, probably no one else is bringing the way I'm bringing it.
Yeah.
That's not arrogance. That's like, I know what I bring.
Mhm.
And I think that that helps be compassionate to oneself, kind to oneself, empathic to oneself. Um, Self-care, we can talk about that for a moment. A lot of people think is selfish. Oh, if I'm so compassionate to myself, I'm just being selfish. No, I don't think so at all. I think the ability to take care of this gift that we call life, you and I don't know how long we're going to be here for. We don't. So you and I have evolved to a place where we recognize we're we're here to make the most of this minute, with what tools? With the tools we were born to express. And I think that's very self-compassionate, not selfish.
Oh, that's that's poetic. That's beautiful. And I agree 100%. Um, wow. My next question, Dr. Mantell, moving right along because there's so many questions I'd love to ask you. So, how can leaders maintain their composure and confidence during unexpected challenges and when things don't go right?
Yeah. Well, that's a very interesting question. Um, I think that this notion of going right. Let's talk about that.
Mhm.
What I think is going right and going wrong may need to be redefined. Give me an example of what you mean when you say when things are not going right. What comes to mind?
Yeah, so for example, I remember one time I had to take the stage and technology was not working, Dr. Mantell. They were taking a while getting up those, keynote presentations.
Right.
And as a speaker, you rely sometimes on those notes to
Right.
to keep it fluid, to stay on time and be more confident. So when those keynote presentations were not coming up, and it didn't, technology, they weren't able to work them, and I learned such a valuable lesson as a result of what happened. But I would love to hear from you first.
I'm sure this is going to be something you're going to say, yeah, that's what I'm saying. See, I look at situations and say, oh my God, that was terrible. It was horrible. It shouldn't have gone that way. Stop. I don't know what's right and wrong. I tend to be a little bit more spiritual than that. I'm not preaching anything here. I'm not preaching a religion, but only the one upstairs, in my estimation,
Yeah.
knows what's right and wrong. I mean, we murder and putting other people down, and I would get that. But when the technology doesn't work, when the computer goes bust in the middle of an interview, how do I know that that's wrong? Well, obviously, Michael, that wasn't supposed to happen. Your notes are gone. The interview got cut short. You ran out of gas. You had a flat tire. I get it. What I do is tell myself what can be right about this. And
Mm.
if I'm on stage and something goes, quote, wrong, and this has happened frequently, I always use it to turn around and either make humor out of it or say, okay, let's stop for a moment and ask ourselves, wonder what made this happen now? Why in my talk did the mic go out?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because the powers that be know that Michael's going to know what to do with that.
Oh,
He's going to know how to turn it around and use it for a remarkable lesson. And that has happened. And every time something you get, my example I give is when you get a flat tire, people start cursing and I say, you know what? Thank goodness. I say thank goodness a lot. Why?
mm-hmm.
Because maybe that flat tire on this block saved me from a car crash 3 blocks ahead. Oh, this
That's,
guy's living in a bubble. I am. Come on in.
yes.
When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the what's the poem? When the road you're trudging is all uphill, stop for a moment and think, what if it all goes right?
Yes. Yes. And going back to that moment where that happened to me, instead of freaking out, I said, okay, then this is, it allowed me to step into my authentic version. And so I realized, oh, okay, this is what God wanted to
Right,
happen. This is what
right.
He wanted me to do, was just for me to step into my best version and speak from my heart. And
Yeah. So sometimes I'll say, how many of you right now think something went wrong? And everyone will go, raise their hands. And I'll go like, seriously? No, come on. Again, how many of you think something just went wrong here? God, the mic busted. We can't hear you. Well, maybe it went right. Maybe I was supposed to come closer. Maybe I'm supposed to shout. Maybe I'm supposed to walk around the room more. Maybe it didn't go wrong. Maybe there's a lesson.
mm,
Rest for a moment, catch your breath, then
mm,
go forward with that mindset of appreciation. And when you have an appreciative mindset, like you said, you wake up with gratitude. Gratitude is medicine. I'm thankful this happened. Are you crazy? I was talking to someone who applied for a fellowship, a residency. He didn't get it. And he said, oh my God, I'm a failure. I'm no good. My life is ruined. Whoa, stop. Wait a second. Maybe this was good.
yes, yes, exactly.
What is good about this?
And
That's the way we look at that.
I love that, Dr. Mantell, and that's what happened to me after a difficult divorce,
Hmm.
and that lasted 3.5 years, and it was just, it would never end. And then I I found my father unconscious. So I'm like, talk about added insult to injury. But it was his demise, Dr. Mantell, that made me realize I need to extract the lessons, not the losses.
Yeah.
What's
Oh, beautiful.
and it was such, and that's where I knew I felt it, being there at the hospital as my mother's sobbing over my father and my brother's there. I felt like a part of me died that day, but at the same time, my lens changed. My lens changed, and I was able to see things differently and extract the lesson. The lesson was, thank you, God, for having
Right.
you gave me the best father a woman could ask for, the man who loved me unconditionally. Thank you, God, for giving me my husband at the time. He did the best he could with what he had for
Mm-hmm.
those 15 years. People grow, things
Right.
happen. I wish him the best. So it was in that moment I learned to extract lessons, not losses.
Right. Beautifully said. I love that. I'm going to quote that. I love that. Lessons, not losses. I
And
think that
mhm,
especially when it comes to loss, I remember just recently the parents of the American hostage who was killed in Israel, or the Gaza, wherever he was killed. And at the funeral, she said, his name is Hirsch. She said, "Hirsch, you're finally free."
Oh,
Wow. I was once on Good Morning America, and I was waiting to go on the set, and the mother of a soldier was on, and her son was just killed and tortured. And the anchor at the time said to her, "The whole world prayed for your son. Did God not hear your prayers?" And I thought, "Oh my God, I can't believe you just asked that question, this mother." And she said, "Oh, no, 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 no. He heard our prayers, but his answer was no." And she said it just like that.
ooh.
Acceptance. Wow. She obviously was learning the lessons, not the losses.
And talk about sexy confidence, Dr. Mantell, to be assertive in that vulnerable moment,
Hmm.
because her spiritual faith is guiding her, and she stood up for her spiritual belief.
Yes. Very
And
important to be able to do that. A lot of people, we talk about sexy confidence and vulnerability. For a long time, I guess maybe it's been over the last decade or so, there have been some personalities that come forward that have started selling vulnerability. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention this on your show, in this interview. It's as if vulnerability becomes the entree point to a TED talk. There was a time when I had this, I had that, I suffered, I lost, and then that, and I overcame it. And somehow that's become a commodity to sell. And there's people who selling it and people who really experience it. And there's a big difference when someone is genuine
mhm,
and they're sharing from their heart. You want to stand next to them and learn everything you can. Um, and I think sometimes it comes a little bit inauthentic
yes.
when we use this vulnerability to sell a book or sell something. Uh,
Mm.
I have a hard time with that sometimes.
Oh, yeah, what a good point, Dr. Mantell. Now that you pointed it out, I'm sure I'm going to when
Right.
I'm like, oh my goodness, there it is. But I think, and this is the big, you know, the thing that people are can't for the most part can't be deceived.
Hmm.
As far as there's something not right about this gentleman or about this lady,
Right.
they can sniff out when someone is not being truthful and honest.
Right.
And that's where we as leaders must, and this is what I mean, step into our authentic versions, because we connect with ourselves in a healthy way. Not only that, but as a result of that, we build trust and rapport with others, because there's like rawness. There's this is what you get. And if
Right.
oh,
This is who we are.
yeah, we attract who we're supposed to attract, and we
Right.
repel this is okay.
You mentioned my last book. The link is what you think. I was self-published and went through Amazon. It's all over the place, but that was not a sales pitch. This book's been out a while, but there are a number of typos in the book that people just didn't pick up. And people started writing to me, "Hey, the book is out, but you have a typo on page and another typo on page." And my friends used to say, "Oh my God, you must be humiliated." Nah,
Oh, I love that.
happens. Happens. You're
Mm,
not embarrassed? No. Why would I be embarrassed? Because
oh,
that means I'm like, there's something about me I'm ashamed of. I
mhm.
mean, mistakes happen. I think that's sort of what you're alluding to. How do
Yeah,
you accept that you made a mistake?
Dr. Mantell, you have no idea. I needed to hear everything you're saying, but this message is so spot on, because I'm actually writing my book.
Ah,
And as I'm writing my book, the imposter syndrome comes in. And this imposter is telling me, well, a year from now, you're going to go back and read the book and you're going to, I was like, why was I thinking that? Why didn't, but that's what having this growth mindset is all about, is that 6 months from now, a year from now, my thinking is going to evolve. We're always going to change. So I love what you shared, because I'm just going to get this methodology that I have in my heart and mind in this book and get it out there with the typos and all. So
Right.
thank you.
The
Thank you.
title, I think the best title of a book that anyone could ever write is "My Next One Will Be Better."
Exactly.
Maybe I'm going to use that title for my next book.
You
My
should.
next one will be better.
You should. But I love this authenticity and this level of integrity you share with us, because, you're so highly educated. And so your wisdom and everything, just, again, this is why it's an absolute honor having you here.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
and I have more questions.
I'm here for you. I'm good.
Uh, so a question, um, another question that I have is, because I've fallen in love with neuroscience, and you alluded to this earlier, that
Yeah.
the brain
Neuroplasticity, right?
plasticity, Dr. Mantell, I'm fascinated with this topic, that the brain is malleable. And, I'm like, yes, I choose a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. And how can I, you know, it's, I love working out. I lift weights. And for me, especially being a retired Marine officer, having physical prowess is one of these things we strived for as Marines. And I
Hmm.
still continue to practice what I preach. I work on my, like you were talking about earlier, self-care,
Hmm. Hmm.
because it's it's a non-negotiable, right?
Right.
It strengthens my body and it strengthens my brain. So my question, are there any cutting edge insights in neuroscience with regards to overcoming anxiety or increasing our performance so we can have more physical prowess?
Absolutely. I'm a 6 day a week gym guy. My wife is a fitness trainer. We believe in physical activity. And I think at the end of the day, no matter what you do or say, physical activity is the number one way to uh, for the brain to form these new neural pathways and reorganize itself in response to the experiences around us that we have. Neuroplasticity is, I made some notes here. I want to make sure I cover this. If you have a panic attack every time you go to the store, over time, that becomes your brain's default. That knot is tied. And that you have to untie that knot. That's what neuroplasticity is. It's the more often you use a neural pathway, the same knot, and don't untie it, the more ingrained it becomes. So what we like to focus on is some ways in which people can untie those knots. Now, you ever tried to untie a knot in your sneakers and you untie it, you pull the string, oh, it knotted up, it got worse?
Yesterday.
Yeah, it happens every day when I'm taking my gym shoes off.
Yeah.
I have a whole list of things that we can do to help us. But let me just share with you some real, not just the common sense, exercise, eat right, sleep right, social connection, avoid the risky substances. Um, those are the common things that we can do to help calm our brains and add to this flexibility of the mind, growth mindset, if you will.
Mm.
Um, Recent studies have shown that we can rewire our brains um, with neurofeedback techniques. So we visualize, we do some mental rehearsal. If I'm going to be giving a talk or if I'm having a meeting of the executive team, I want to mentally rehearse that with my clients so they actually see it happen. Why? Because the second time you do it, even though the first time is imaginary, the second time you do it is better. There's something called precision psychiatry. Advances in neuroimaging and genetic testing enable us to be much more personalized in how we treat anxiety, and much more tailored, whether it's medication or talk therapy or whatever it may be. The gut biome, what we eat,
Mm-hmm.
our stomach, and there are tests you can take now to look at what you what helps you and what hurts you, what you're allergic to, so to speak, and what seems to propel you forward. Um, it's still controversial, but uh, there are a number of smart drugs that are being tested. I don't particularly advance that because it's still under a lot of scrutiny. But there's some people that think that ketamine treatment, which has become very popular, and lots of examples of helping people with that. But some of the other newer stuff I'm a little bit suspicious of. But ketamine is something that's cutting edge, and I think it's something that we need to put on our list more and more, especially with anxiety and panic and depression. Virtual reality exposure. We have now the ability to put on these glasses and see ourselves in situations hyper realistically, and to actually see ourselves walking through. No, that's the wrong way to do it. This would be a better way. A little bit more mental rehearsal, but with the reality exposure. And then we have a lot of my clients are beginning to turn to this TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. Non invasive, it doesn't go inside, it just touches the brain. It treats anxiety disorders, enhances cognitive performance. And more people are beginning to use TMS. Sleep is a critical one. You wake
Yeah.
up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I hope you're getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep. But anything
Mm-hmm.
that we can do within reason for sleep optimization would be extremely helpful. These are some of the things that people are doing. I'm sure there are others that I haven't mentioned, but I mean, many years ago in the 70s, there was something called biofeedback. A wearable, you put your finger on this device, and it would give you some buzzing and sounds as your physiology would change. Today, it's wearable. We wear it on our wrist. So biofeedback. Um, I'm waiting for this to be able to tell me when my anxiety level goes up. Beep, 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 beep. And I look and says, "Hey, you're beginning to your biology markers are aroused. What are you thinking?" That would be great. Um, Anything that raises our serotonin, our epinephrine, our dopamines, particularly physical exercise, are great avenues to help us with neuroscience. A big area, big area. And UCSD happens to be one of the centerpieces here in San Diego where people are doing a lot of great research on that brain work with anxiety.
Ah, so good to hear, Doctor.
So sorry,
What's that?
a long answer.
No, I love, lovely answer. Keep going, please. I'm right. I've written everything down.
Yeah.
But you see, as my baby, who's not a baby, she's gonna be a senior at UCSD, and I always wear my UCSD sweatshirt, my gear. Extremely proud of my two daughters and the women they've become. But my
What are they studying?
my oldest just graduated from the University of Wilmington. She's in North Carolina.
Uh-huh, yeah.
She was a Marine, Dr. Mantell. She served in the Marine Corps. I
Oh, I
had
thought you mentioned that. Yeah.
I had her super young. I was a super young mom, but she just, got her degree in psychology. And then my youngest here in UC, who's at UCSD, she's studying cognitive science.
Oh, perfect. Brain computer interface. Tell her to look that up. BCI, brain computer interface. It's still it's early stages, but it shows potential for allowing direct control over anxiety-related brain activity. Technology is playing a greater and greater and greater role in so much of what we do. So that's how to look that up.
Yeah,
Some great studies that are going on there.
I absolutely will. Do we have time for one more question, Dr.
We
Mantell?
have for one more. Yeah, we do.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, what are your top three tips for making people desire to listen to you, even if they disagree with what you have to say?
Okay, real quickly, I'll tell you. Number one, always, always, always don't make it about them. Excuse me, let me say it differently. Let me say it differently. Show respect and empathy.
Ah,
Don't make it about they're no good, they're bad. No, maybe there's something going on with them. Mr. Rogers, if you remember, growing up, a TV show. In the
mhm,
movie, Tom Hanks is getting berated and torn apart and cursed at. And he listens to this guy yelling it and screaming and this and that. And he says to him, "Thank you so much for sharing how you feel about me. I
ah,
appreciate knowing."
ah,
In other words, you are entitled to think whatever you want about me.
mm,
I'm entitled not to upset myself. So, number one tip is show genuine empathy and respect. Demonstrate that I value your opinion of me, even if I disagree. Listen actively. I understand where you're coming from, or I can see why you might feel that way. Number two, we're human beings. You grew up here, I grew up there. You have this value, you have that. We're all different, but we share common ground. So I like to connect. I like to look beyond what's on the beyond the outside and look to that which lies within. What do we share? What values do we share? Use we language, not me or I language. And I try to frame whatever I'm saying in terms of mutual benefit wherever I possibly can. Um, a third tip might be being as calm and as clear as I can be. Um, I don't ever quote very important words, get rattled. I'm not two words. She doesn't make me angry. It comes from within. I
mhm.
make myself rattled, or I make myself angry, or I
Yeah,
make myself respond with frustration to the way I think. So I always take a breath and understand that the distance, the space between bump, ba da bump, 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 I don't have to say bump, 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 ba da bump, bump. How can I answer that? If I don't stop for a minute, then I lose all power over myself. So a calm, rational approach always commands more respect and attention, even from people who disagree. And we see that, I don't want to get political, but we see that in the political arena.
yes.
Stay calm. You'll get more respect. People will hear your perspective. No one hears people screaming at them.
Right, right.
Those are
And
the tips I'd offer.
oh, wonderful tips, wonderful tips. And that's one of the many reasons why I decided, so leadership has changed. And I consider myself a sophisticated disruptor. I'm like, I
Mhm.
want to change the leadership landscape. And it comes down to servant leadership. And
Mhm.
some of the things that you've mentioned, genuine empathy, showing that it's okay. Where's a mutual benefit here?
Right.
Using choice words such as we. This is helping us connect with people, even though it's learning to agree to disagree.
Yeah, people are allowed to have their opinion, and
Yes.
I'm allowed not to have to upset myself about it. Just
Hmm.
because you think I'm this or I'm that, or you say this about me, making myself angry isn't going to change you. It's
Right.
not going to give me the tool to impact you. In fact, it's going to harm my ability to impact you. And
Mm,
so instead, I can say, look, I see that you have a disagreement. I see that you look at me in a different way. wonder if we can find mutuality here. I wonder if we can see something. I'll tell you real quickly. Years ago, I coach a lot of politicians. And years ago, many years ago, someone said, you should run for office. And I said, if I ran for office, this is what I would say. I don't know the first thing about the economy. I don't know anything about wars. I don't know anything about, this or that. What I know how to do is bring people together.
Ah,
And when the world is ready to be brought together, I think I can help.
mm,
The world needs people like yourself who knows how to bring people together so they can hear each other. You work with an executive team and they're angry, they're throwing pens down.
mhm.
Company isn't going forward. Let's focus on what we agree on. Where's
Yeah.
the kindness?
Yes, because and that's the thing, people they're not in it for a paycheck anymore. They want meaning. They want to contribute. So leaders, the onus is on us as leaders to connect with them in that empathetic way through active listening, just how you said. And I love those answers, Dr. Mantell. Thank you. It's been such an absolute honor. And I'm always a stickler for time because I respect your time. I respect
Thank
my
you.
time. And it was an absolute honor having you here
This was a
today.
privilege to be on your show on this side of the microphone, as they say. You're a magnificent interviewer. You bring your heart, you bring your soul, you bring your true authenticity. You are who we see, and that's why your success is so clear.
Yeah.
Um, I hope that we can do some work together,
Oh,
and it would be magnificent to bring this message the way you do, and how we can braid this together. And we'll see where it all goes. Thank you for having me as a guest. This was really, truly a very important moment. Thank you.
thank you. You honor me, Dr. Mantell. How can our viewers, our listeners get a hold of you?
Very simply, my email address is Dr. Mantell, DrMantell at me.com. If you call my cell phone, I answer the phone, 619-743-2555. 619-743-2555. I am not one of these coaches that has a big staff behind me. I like to be very personal. So write to me, I'll answer you. Call me, I'll answer you. And let's connect.
Wow. Well, that's what allowed myself to connect with you, Dr. Mantell. And thank you for being, a public servant, a high caliber leader, and everything that you bring to the table. This is what the world needs: your wisdom, your guidance, and I am so honored for having you here today. Well, this for my viewers and my listeners that are watching. We hope you thoroughly enjoyed this episode of the Sexy Confidence podcast. Make sure you get a hold of Dr. Mantell's books, and we hope you have an incredible day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.